Welcome CSC 230 to exercise 16, and what we're going to try and do is get back to doing some web design. We were just doing some JavaScript, but I thought it would be nice, since our course does have web design in the title, that we do a little design. And where do we design? Well, you could design in Photoshop, you could design in Illustrator. There's other programs out there like Adobe XD, there's Canva, and this one that I'm looking at right now is called Figma, and I really like it, and it's free, and you could work online. It's very much like working in Gravit. If you've worked with Gravit for any of the graphic design classes, or even in the CSC 103 class, I use Gravit for vector art, but it's very much set up the same way, so that you have your layers over here, and everything that you put on becomes its own layer, and if you group something, it becomes its own group, and you can name it. And then over here you have all your properties. So everything that you click on, you have all your properties over here. And what's nice, it's set up for web design. So everything is by pixels. They even have CSS that you could look at. You could see all the CSS for everything and copy and paste that if you need to, or you can just basically lay stuff out the way you normally would in a vector editing program or a layout program. And that's what we have here. This is something I did in the graphic design class, where we redesigned a logo for this company, for Wells Lawn Service. Now, you could see why we redesigned the logo. I don't have to say anything else. So we worked on redesigning a logo, and then what we did is we laid out a web page in Figma the way we'd want it visually, and then we actually took it and we laid it out in HTML, and I thought, wow, we should do that in our web design class. So we were actually able to do some of that, and what I'll do is I'll have you do kind of a simple version of that, just so you get used to laying things out and then kind of converting it to HTML and CSS. Plus, what you're also going to do is kind of plan things out when you lay it out. So you might think, oh, well, this is where my header is going to be. This thing here, oh, that's going to be my header, and it's going to be this big. And this is going to be aligned to the right of the header. And this will be on the left side of the header. And this could be in the middle of the header. Maybe you need 3 columns here. Maybe you don't. And then this part will be your nav. You might have a strip here called nav, and you might have your buttons that are in here that align to the right of that nav. And you can see we have a margin on either side. So maybe body would have the whole margin around everything. And then this is our main section here, and it has a background color. It has a part in the middle that has a headline and some body copy, or like subhead copy, kind of descriptive copy. It just has a little logo over here. This could be a picture too. And then there's kind of a rounded masked picture over here. Now, just one thing to point out, if I go up here to what I named body, is I could see there's stuff on the outside that I could certainly have here, but it'll also crop it. But what's nice too is you can lay out something and hit this little present button and have a prototype of your web page. Now, you could lay out your web page as a prototype, which this is what it is. You can also do it using wireframe, meaning just little blocks that kind of indicate where things are at. They have grids that you can set up, so you can align things to a grid. That's what I did on here. I actually have, if I do Control G, they actually show grids. I set up a 6-grid system here. That way I could kind of make things line up in that area. So I could say, oh, well, this is in these 3 columns here, and this is in the final 2 columns. Or I can make this whole area, say that's going to take up 4 columns. This is going to take up 2 columns if I use flex or something like that. Same thing up here. I thought it'd be nice to kind of do something like that. I'll give you all the information you need. You'll just need a logo. The picture you could bring in yourself. I don't even know if you need this logo or not. You could bring in another picture and put some kind of picture over there. But I don't want this to take real long, but I just want you to get the experience of using this and then kind of thinking out how to prepare it. Because remember, then you have to actually design it with HTML first. You're going to have to say, okay, the header is going to have this in it, and then the nav, and then the section, or whatever you're going to call this, and so on. So that's what we're going to try and do. And what I'm also going to do is log out here, and I'll create a new account just so I can go through the process. So if you have any issues creating an account, hopefully I'll deal with them too. So let me log out of here if I can. Remember, this is free and it's online. And here's my account right now. Now, what you could do is set things up as drafts. Now, they're called a design file, but try not to do projects, because I think they're called team projects, and eventually they only give you 3 for the free version. So just use drafts. There's no problem using drafts. I've been using drafts. I have a whole bunch that I've worked on. But when you do start out, you can just call it a new design file. So I'm going to start off and just make a new design file. And you don't have to do a tour. And what I'll do initially is create something called a frame. And we're going to do desktop to start. And they have different sizes here. I think when I did the other one, I did it in an iMac 1280 by 720. You could do different sizes. And also you could do mobile. So we did mobile stuff as well. But I'll just start off with that for now. And there's kind of an iMac kind of template, a widescreen desktop template. And you can almost treat that as body. Like if you wanted to call it body, you could double click on here and call body, because that may be what your body tag has. You know, you may put a margin on either side of this or whatever. You can also go here for layout grid and change this. If you go here, you'll see this giant grid, which I would never want to use. But if you change grid to columns, you could set up a 4-column, 5-column, 6-column, something like that. It just helps you lay out things a little bit better. Now, these are just temporary. They're like guides, so you could set that up. You could even put a margin on here. You might want to put like 60 margin on here, so it's kind of built in. And that way you could kind of design like that. So let's see how that works. And also, if you do Control-G, I think whether you're on Mac or Windows, you could do Control-G to make them go away, because they'll show up even when you keep laying out things. And a couple things we'll do to start. First of all, we didn't name this yet. So, and if you go back to Files, it's called Untitled. I'll open it up. I think once I open it up again, it'll show me this. So just do that. Just go back to Files and then give it a name. And you could just double click on here, and I'll just call it 16, and I'll just call it Wells Web, because it's not mobile, so we'll just call it Wells Web for now. And it's saved in drafts, and that's fine. So there's body. And actually, I hit the little check bar to make it into a component by accident, and I just read that you can't do that back. So actually, I'm going to delete this. It's easy enough, and I'll just add a new frame, and I'll just make sure I don't make it a component. I'll talk to you about components. Those are good for buttons, which you can actually make multiple instances of them. I'll go back here and put that in there. And I don't want to, I hit this thing. That makes things into components, and I just read that once you make it a component, you can't. Components are kind of like instances where if you have one button, looks like all the others. I think on the other one, I'll show you that you can actually change one and they all change. But anyway, this is my body. I'll just call it body for now. If you left it iMac, it doesn't matter. Now, a couple things I'm going to do here. I'm going to drag a guide down, and I looked up a good header size, and I think the other one I made like 154. You could do something like 160 or something like that. If you zoom in, Command plus or whatever, you can see things a little bit better. I'll make this maybe 160, and then maybe I'll 160 and maybe 40, go to about 200 or maybe even 220 or something for my nav area. I'll go down to maybe 220 and see how that looks for my nav area. I'm just kind of putting guides in here. That'll be my nav area. And I'll make kind of a box here. I'll make a nav that goes across. And if I need to see the size, I could see it's 60 pixels high. That may be a little higher than I want. I may want to go a little less. You can go here. I think my other one I have like 44. Maybe I'll go 54. See how that looks. And then I'll zoom in and change my guides. I don't want my guides messed up because I want things to lock into them. So I'll leave my guide there. I'll zoom out. If I want to change colors, I'll wait to do that until I bring my logo in. Now I do have a logo to bring in, and I'm going to give that to you, and I'll show you where to get that. Basically, you could go File, Place, Image. Now I'm going to put that somewhere where you can have it. And I guess what I'll do, I'll go File, Place, Image just to show you how to do it. And I have it in 230 folder. I have a folder called IMG, and you're going to have this. And you could just put in the Wells logo GIF or Ping. Ping has a shadow. The GIF does not. So I'll just use the GIF for now. Now, one thing you got to be careful with is if you have something selected, it'll paste it into it, meaning it'll make it like a mask. So make sure you just don't have anything selected. And I'll move this in right now. I can make it a little smaller if I want. I'll hold Shift to keep it in proportion. That's fine for now. I'll just have that on the left side, and we'll have kind of a top to bottom, left to right kind of layout. This thing, maybe I want a nice dark color, so I'll go here for the fill, take the eyedropper, I'll go here, and maybe I'll even make that a little bit darker. Maybe I'll have a darker one, and maybe the buttons will be lighter. We'll try that. And as you use colors, they'll be saved here as document colors, just like Gravit does. I'll go down here, I'll draw another, just a rectangle. I don't have to use frames here. I'm just drawing a rectangle down here. And maybe I'll use the same color as the logo for this for now. And I can make this darker. I think I use yellow buttons. But anyway, we're just kind of laying this out. And if you do Control-G, that'll disappear. Okay, so we kind of have this set up for now. We're going to just put in some buttons, put in some body copy, and put in some graphics. So I think what I'll do is I'll stop here. So I'll let you get that set up, and then we'll just do a little bit more here. We don't have a whole lot to do. We have a couple buttons. We'll just throw in some text, throw in some images. I'll show you how to work with that. And then we'll start to lay it out using our HTML and CSS, and we'll lay it out in Replit. So that'll be coming up in part 2.